This is the story of a young girl named Emma and a mysterious wolf who would become her silent guide in the depths of the forest. Emma adjusted her backpack straps, taking a deep breath as she stepped onto the forest trail. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the towering trees, casting shifting patterns on the forest floor. At first, the path had been clear and welcoming, but now the dense foliage around her twisted into an almost impenetrable maze. She paused, scanning the surroundings. Every tree seemed taller than the last, every shadow deeper. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying the faint rustle of leaves and distant bird calls. Emma's heart began to race. She hadn't seen another human being in hours. Suddenly, a pair of glowing amber eyes appeared from the underbrush. Emma stumbled back. Stepping forward slowly was a massive gray wolf, its fur damp and bristled, eyes fixed on her with a strange intensity. She froze, unsure whether to run or stay. The wolf didn't attack. It only watched, deliberate, silent, almost as if it was studying her, gauging her intentions. Emma swallowed her fear and whispered, I'm not going to hurt you." The wolf growled softly, a low, rumbling sound, but it did not move closer. In that moment, Emma realized that the forest was not only wild and dangerous, but also alive in ways she hadn't imagined. And for reasons she could not yet understand, this wolf might not be her enemy. It could be her protector. The morning mist hung thick between the trees, clinging to Emma's hair and clothing. She shivered, despite the sun attempting to break through the dense canopy. Every step she took seemed heavier, her boots sinking into the damp forest floor. Leaves and twigs crunched under her weight, a harsh echo in the otherwise eerie silence. She paused, trying to remember the trail she thought she had followed. The forest had swallowed it whole. A distant screech echoed through the trees. Emma's heart jumped. She hugged a tree trunk for support, straining her eyes to find the source. Then, movement, subtle, deliberate, at the edge of her vision. The wolf. Its amber eyes glinted in the filtered sunlight, almost like embers. It didn't approach, but it didn't leave either. Emma realized, with a mix of fear and awe, that she wasn't entirely alone. Hunger pressed in relentlessly. She rummaged through her backpack, finding only a granola bar and a small bottle of water. Not nearly enough for what could be days trapped in this wilderness. She knew she had to find a water source, some shelter, or risk exhaustion and exposure. Hours passed. The forest seemed alive, whispering warnings through the rustling leaves and snapping branches. Shadows moved unnaturally, and Emma couldn't tell if she imagined them or if predators stalked silently nearby. She clutched her backpack strap tightly, walking slowly, cautiously. Every sense was alert. By midday, she stumbled upon a narrow, rushing stream. Relief surged through her. She knelt at the water's edge, cupping her hands to drink. The water was icy, biting her palms, but revitalizing. She glanced around, realizing how isolated she truly was, and then she heard it. The growl, low and menacing, from behind her. Spinning, she saw the wolf standing on a boulder across the stream, muscles tensed, teeth bared slightly. Emma froze. The wolf was not attacking, but it radiated a warning. "Stay here. Do not wander." She nodded, though it couldn't see her, understanding its silent command. Night approached again. Emma found a fallen tree to rest against, using her jacket as a makeshift pillow. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying with it the distant howl of more wolves, or perhaps the same one calling her name in the dark. She hugged her knees, trying to quiet her pounding heart. The wolf's presence nearby, visible in the moonlight as it prowled the clearing's edge, was oddly comforting despite the danger it represented. The days that followed became a test of endurance. Emma learned to move silently, avoiding noisy patches of underbrush. She discovered berries and edible plants, though she remained cautious, afraid of poisonous varieties. The wolf appeared almost every day, sometimes just at the edge of sight, other times closer, watching over her as she navigated the treacherous terrain. One evening, Emma faced a true threat. A jaguar, sleek and silent, stepped into her path, yellow eyes locking onto her with predatory intent. Panic surged, and she stumbled backward, almost falling into a deep crevice. The jaguar moved closer, muscles rippling under its spotted coat. From the shadows, a blur of gray launched itself with terrifying speed. The wolf leapt between her and the jaguar, teeth flashing, fur bristling. Growls and snarls filled the clearing, echoing off the trees like rolling thunder. Emma could hardly breathe as she watched the predator clash with her guardian, the wolf's strength and intelligence turning the tide. The jaguar eventually retreated, and the wolf, wounded slightly, returned to her side, nudging her with its muzzle as if to reassure her. "I've got you." That night, as Emma tended to minor scratches and wrapped her arms around the wolf for warmth, she realized something profound. This creature, terrifying yet protective, had become her lifeline in a forest that would have otherwise consumed her. The forest air had grown heavy by late afternoon, a suffocating stillness settling over the trees. Birds were quiet, and even the usual rustle of small animals seemed to vanish. Emma wiped the sweat and rain from her brow. A storm was coming. Dark clouds rolled across the sky like an omen, swallowing the sunlight and casting shadows that twisted unnaturally around her. She hurried along a narrow ridge, each step careful, boots sinking into the wet earth. She had learned to read the signs of the forest, to sense the hidden dangers lurking just beyond her sight. Yet the storm was unlike anything she had faced. Rain began to fall in thick sheets, pounding her head and shoulders, chilling her to the bone. Thunder boomed overhead, shaking the branches, and lightning split the sky, illuminating the jagged silhouettes of twisted trees. Emma's progress slowed. The ground beneath her feet had turned into a slippery, muddy trap. Every movement required painstaking care. She stumbled, nearly sliding off the edge of the ridge, heart pounding as her mind raced with fear. The wolf appeared suddenly, its gray fur slick with rain, eyes glowing fiercely in the dim light. It growled low and deep, circling her protectively, signaling her to follow a safer path. She obeyed, her trust in the wolf absolute. They moved together through the forest, the rain hammering down relentlessly. Branches whipped across her face and arms, the cold seeping into her bones. Somewhere below, the river swelled violently from the storm, water roaring like a beast. Suddenly, a landslide thundered down the mountainside ahead. Trees, rocks, and mud cascaded toward the path Emma had been following moments ago. She froze, terror locking her in place. The wolf barked sharply, snapping her out of her paralysis. It darted down a narrow, jagged path alongside the ledge. Emma scrambled to follow, slipping repeatedly, mud coating her hands and knees, water flooding her boots. The wolf waited at the end of the path, its amber eyes shining with intelligence and urgency. Emma leapt onto a boulder, balancing precariously as debris crashed around her. Her chest heaved with exhaustion and fear. The wolf nudged her forward, urging her to move faster. She obeyed, adrenaline surging through her veins, her mind focused entirely on survival. They reached a smaller clearing, partially protected by the trees. Emma collapsed onto the ground, shivering uncontrollably. The wolf pressed against her side, offering warmth and reassurance amidst the chaos. Rain poured down, turning the ground into a slippery mire. Lightning struck nearby, shaking the earth and sending Emma into a paralyzing panic. But the wolf remained calm, its presence grounding her. Hours passed. The storm raged without mercy, yet somehow, guided by the wolf, Emma navigated through the treacherous forest. Hunger, exhaustion, and fear gnawed at her, but she had learned something essential. She was not alone, and she had a guardian. Finally, in the dim light of early dawn, a faint column of smoke appeared through the trees. Emma's heart leapt. Human signs. With renewed energy, she stumbled toward it, the wolf following silently. They reached a ranger station tucked into a secluded valley, a beacon of safety amidst the wild. Emma fell to her knees, exhausted, tears mingling with the rain on her face. She looked back toward the forest. The wolf stood at the edge, its figure blending with the shadows of the trees. Amber eyes met hers one final time. It lingered, a silent protector, before melting back into the dense jungle, leaving Emma safe, alive, and profoundly changed. Back in civilization, Emma struggled to explain what had happened. People doubted her. Tales of hallucinations, of exhaustion and fear, of a girl lost in the wilderness. But she knew the truth. Somewhere in the heart of that forest, a wolf roamed, guardian, protector, silent friend. Though she never saw it again, Emma felt the bond every time she closed her eyes. The forest had tested her, and through fear, chaos, and danger, she had survived. She had learned trust, courage, and the unspoken language of the wild. And in the howl of distant wolves at night, she heard a faint echo of the friend who had saved her life. She would never forget it. Emma awoke to a damp chill creeping into her bones. Though the ranger station had provided shelter and warmth for the night, her mind refused to rest. Images of the previous storm haunted her. The mudslides, the roaring river, the relentless wind, and above all, the piercing amber eyes of the wolf that had guided her through chaos. Her body ached, but she knew the forest had not finished teaching her its lessons. She returned, cautiously, to the perimeter of the jungle. The smell of wet earth and moss greeted her like an old, knowing friend. Every crack of a twig underfoot seemed amplified, every rustle of leaves a whispered warning. Days in the forest stretched endlessly. Emma learned to listen to the rhythm of the woods, the calls of distant animals, the subtle shifts in wind signaling changes in weather, and the faint, almost imperceptible padding of the wolf moving just out of sight. Its presence was both comfort and tension. She never knew when she might stumble upon it, and yet she feared what might happen if she lost sight of it completely. During one particularly grueling stretch, Emma found herself trapped on a narrow cliffside path overlooking a rushing river. The storm from days before had changed the landscape dramatically. Jagged rocks now jutted dangerously, and fallen trees created precarious bridges over the treacherous water below. Emma's muscles screamed with fatigue, yet instinct drove her forward. A single misstep could send her plunging into the icy current. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the underbrush behind her. Emma froze, muscles tensed, heart hammering. The wolf emerged, moving with deliberate precision across the cliffside. Its gaze met hers, calm and commanding. She swallowed her fear and took a tentative step forward, trusting the creature's silent guidance. The wolf led her along a hidden path, veiled by thick ferns and twisted roots. Every step was a test. Loose stones, slippery mud, and the ever-present threat of unseen predators. Emma's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps, but she pressed on, driven by the knowledge that survival demanded courage and attentiveness beyond anything she had ever known. Night fell again. The jungle transformed into a dark, labyrinthine maze. Strange calls echoed, some distant, some unnervingly close. Emma huddled beneath a massive tree root, wrapping her jacket tightly around her. The wolf sat nearby, vigilant, ears twitching, eyes scanning every shadow. It occasionally nudged her, a reminder that she was not alone. Over the following days, Emma learned to forage more effectively. She discovered edible roots and fruits, learned to catch small fish in the streams, and even crafted a rudimentary spear from a fallen branch. The forest, while still dangerous, became a classroom. Each day was a lesson in survival, fear, and adaptation. And through it all, the wolf remained a constant, silent companion, teaching, warning, and protecting without a single spoken word. One morning, while crossing a moss-covered ravine, Emma slipped, falling into a tangle of roots and vines. Pain shot through her leg, a deep, sharp ache that made her wince with every movement. She was trapped, unable to climb back to solid ground. Panic surged, but then she felt a familiar nudge at her side. The wolf had found her, circling below, its amber eyes urging her to move carefully. With the wolf's guidance, Emma maneuvered her out of the trap, her trust in the creature solidifying into a bond she could not articulate. Every day in the forest, every challenge, every brush with death brought them closer together, not as human and animal, but as allies bound by survival. The sun had barely risen when Emma awoke to a tense stillness. The forest, which had always hummed with life, was eerily quiet. A sense of foreboding settled over her like a heavy cloak. She tightened the straps of her backpack, checking her meager supplies. Days in the jungle had taken a toll. Scratches, bruises, and exhaustion marked every inch of her body, but her determination had grown stronger. As she stepped carefully along a narrow ridge, the sky darkened suddenly. Clouds thickened rapidly, rolling in like a storm army, and the wind shifted sharply. Emma froze as a distant roar shook the mountainside. Her heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the realization that the forest's final test had arrived. The wolf appeared almost instantly, emerging from the shadows with precision. Its amber eyes glowed with urgency. It nudged her forward, guiding her along a hidden path that wound dangerously close to a steep drop. Emma followed, trusting the creature implicitly. Every step was precarious. Loose rocks threatened to give way, slick mud tugged at her boots, and the wind whipped branches into her face. Suddenly, a landslide thundered down the ridge ahead, rocks and earth cascading like an unstoppable wave. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she froze, unable to move. The wolf growled, circling her, its eyes scanning for a safe route. Then, with remarkable agility, it darted down a narrow crevice, signaling Emma to follow. Her heart racing, she obeyed, jumping over jagged rocks, clinging to roots, and sliding down the muddy slope. The wolf stayed close, guiding her every step, its presence the difference between life and death. The storm intensified. Rain poured like sheets of silver, soaking Emma to the bone. Thunder cracked overhead, splitting trees and sending lightning arcs across the dark sky. She could barely see, but the wolf's glowing eyes were a beacon, steady and unwavering. Ahead, a raging river, swollen from the storm, blocked their path. The current was violent, tearing at everything it touched. Emma's fear surged. She had no idea how she could cross it safely. But the wolf leapt first, testing the waters, and then came back to her side, barking and nudging her forward. Heart hammering, she followed, inching across slippery rocks and fallen logs, guided by the wolf's unwavering direction. Halfway through, a wave struck her, knocking her off balance. She slipped, water dragging her toward the roaring current. Panic surged. The wolf dove in instantly, teeth gripping her jacket, muscles straining as it pulled her to the opposite bank. Emma coughed and shivered violently, overwhelmed by fear and relief. She looked into the wolf's amber eyes, understanding fully for the first time that her life depended entirely on this mysterious protector. Hours later, the storm began to subside. The jungle, drenched and trembling, seemed to exhale. Emma, exhausted but alive, spotted a faint trail of smoke curling above the treetops. Rescue. The ranger station. She stumbled forward, barely able to move, but the wolf remained at her side, ensuring her safe passage. Finally, they reached the clearing. Emma collapsed on the soft ground, tears mingling with rain on her dirt-streaked face. She looked at the wolf, which stood at the edge of the forest. Its amber eyes met hers one last time, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forged through fear, survival, and trust. Then, almost ghost-like, it melted into the shadows of the dense forest. Back in the safety of civilization, Emma struggled to convey her story. People listened with polite skepticism, tales of hallucinations, exhaustion, and imagination fueled by fear. But Emma knew the truth. Somewhere deep in that forest, a gray wolf roamed, a silent guardian, protector, and friend. Though she never saw it again, the lessons remained. Courage, adaptability, and trust were forged in the harshest trials. The forest had tested her, almost claimed her, and then returned her to life, changed, stronger, and more aware. In the quiet of her city apartment, Emma could sometimes hear the faint echo of a howl in her dreams. Amber eyes gleamed in the darkness, reminding her that survival often came from the most unexpected allies, and she would never forget. Days blended into one another. Emma's body ached constantly, but her mind had grown sharper. She had learned the subtle language of the forest, the birds' warning calls, the rustling leaves signaling hidden predators, the shifting of clouds predicting storms. Every morning was a negotiation with nature. The wolf appeared more frequently now, not just guiding her, but observing her choices. Its presence was almost like a shadow mentor, silently teaching her. Emma had begun leaving small markers, twigs arranged in a certain way to chart the hidden paths the wolf suggested. One afternoon, she discovered an abandoned campsite deep in a thicket. Rusted cans, a tattered tent, and footprints frozen in mud hinted that humans had ventured here before. Curiosity mixed with caution, Emma explored the area carefully, noting signs of wild animals. The wolf stayed hidden, observing. Suddenly, a branch snapped loudly behind her. Emma spun, a pair of glowing eyes reflected in the half-light. The wolf emerged, nudging her back, warning of another predator stalking nearby. The forest had secrets, and Emma realized she was only beginning to understand them. Night in the deep forest was a living, breathing entity. Darkness enveloped Emma like a thick blanket, suffocating and oppressive. Every sound was amplified: insects buzzing, leaves rustling, distant howls. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but the wolf's presence provided a fragile sense of safety. As she camped under a fallen tree, Emma noticed shadowy movements around her. Wolves, jaguars, or the tricks of imagination fueled by exhaustion. The wolf circled her, growling softly, ears twitching at every sound. Suddenly, a distant howl echoed through the trees, long, mournful, and chilling. Emma hugged her knees, shivering. The wolf's growl cut through the silence, warning her of approaching danger. A jaguar, sleek and deadly, stepped into the clearing. Emma froze, her heart in her throat. But the wolf leapt forward, teeth bared, muscles coiled for battle. A tense standoff ensued. The jaguar, realizing the wolf's dominance, retreated. Emma exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. She stroked the wolf's fur, whispering words of gratitude. She had survived another night, strengthened by fear and courage, and bonded deeper with her mysterious guardian. By now, Emma's survival skills were near instinctual. She could navigate the forest almost like a native. Yet the forest still held tests: treacherous rivers, hidden pits, and the ever-present threat of predators. Each day was a reminder of fragility. Each night a lesson in trust. One morning, she found herself at the edge of a canyon, water rushing violently below. A fallen tree served as a bridge, slippery and unstable. Emma's heart raced as she inched across. Midway, the log shifted. Panic surged. She clutched a branch for balance, eyes darting to the wolf waiting on the other side. With deliberate care, she moved forward, guided silently by her guardian. Finally, after days of near-death encounters, exhaustion, and unrelenting fear, Emma spotted smoke curling above the trees. Human civilization. Tears streamed down her face. The wolf led her to a safe clearing, then stopped. Amber eyes met hers. The bond was unspoken, yet profound. Emma understood that their journey together had ended, but the lessons, the trust, and the memory would last a lifetime. She stumbled toward the ranger station, collapsing in relief and exhaustion. The wolf lingered, then disappeared into the dense jungle, a shadow fading into legend. Emma returned to the city physically intact, but forever changed. The forest had tested her in every conceivable way. She had faced hunger, fear, darkness, and death, yet survived, guided by a creature that seemed both mystical and real. People doubted her story. They whispered about hallucinations, stress-induced dreams, or exaggeration. But Emma knew the truth. The wolf was real. Guardian of the forest, silent protector, friend in the darkness. Even years later, in the quiet of her apartment, she would sometimes hear a distant howl. Amber eyes glimmered in her memory, reminding her of courage, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a lost girl and a wolf that had saved her life. The forest had been unforgiving, terrifying, and mysterious, and yet it had given her the greatest gift: survival, hope, and an unforgettable friend.